All right, well, good morning. My name is Nic Easley, CEO of 3C Consulting and Managing Director of Multiverse Capital. Thanks so much for joining us on this really special edition of Cannabis Unfiltered, where we're going to be talking with one of the original kind of OGs of Santa Cruz and the cannabis dispensary world, speaking with the CEO of KindPeoples, Khalil. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So what's it like? I mean, owning a dispensary in one of the coolest surf towns. You got redwoods, had redwoods to the north of you. A lot of fires going on here. And it's October 2020, so we've got coronavirus going on. But what's it like in your opinion, like to own, operate, and run cannabis retail stores in California?
Sure. It's amazing, honestly. I try to say with a straight face that I am from Santa Cruz, I'm born and raised here, and that I run an amazing cannabis company across the street from the hospital that I was born in, right? So I'm incredibly lucky in that regard. And, I get to do what I love, but more than that, we've been able to share those passions with our team. We now have approximately 80 employees, give or take. And now we have this huge staff that transmits those passions into our community, and it's fabulous.
So being from Santa Cruz, what was it that really, from your background, like what were you doing before cannabis? And then what was that kind of driving force to jump into cannabis, especially there in your hometown?
Sure. What I was doing before cannabis, I like to say my 8th grade homework. I've pretty much always been in cannabis to some degree. During my formative years, the passage of Prop 215 took place, and that's really when I had my foray and began as a cultivator, and that was a 15-year career. And at that time, this was when things were much different, right, to say the least. This was a time when you might get a call from your buddy at 2 a.m. to help him out with loading up his entire grow into a U-Haul truck. And we've come a long way since then, but it was also a really beautiful time in the sense that it was very rootsy and authentic, and I was able to provide cannabis to all the various medical collectives that were popping up in the Santa Cruz area and the Bay Area, and that was sort of the budding start for my own career in cannabis as well as KindPeoples.
It's awesome. And California from 1996 forward, you had the Compassionate Care Act. And we had so many different things that, like Prop D, Prop M, 215, like you mentioned, and then MRSA, then the adult use marijuana bill. It's been a roller coaster of regulation. So you saw from the first medical market moving forward, and now working with the Bureau of Cannabis Control, compliance is so important. What aspects, as you've grown KindPeoples, have you, like what new regulatory hurdles have you had to jump through that in the beginning you didn't have to?
Sure. It's been frustrating. There's no question about that. But it's also been key in advancing the industry in so many respects. And there are growing pains that I think we've just had to accept as a nascent industry that really came out of nowhere, right? I mean, we came from underneath the rock and told the whole world, hey, here we are and we want to be legit. Well, now we're getting what we asked for. So more specifically, I would say that having multiple layers of government to have to work with really complicates things. Prop 64 was passed under this premise of local control. So we are, very much controlled at the local level from everything from zoning and, buffers and hours of operation, signage, and those types of details. But then there's this whole other big brother layer at the state level with the BCC. And that can be really complicated, especially when the local regs and the state regs are not in alignment with one another.
Definitely seen that. It seems like so many municipalities haven't opted in, and that's why there's like so many unique opportunities. And we think, in your county, there's 15 dispensaries licensed currently for adult use?
Give or take.
And KindPeoples looks like, the largest, and you've got 2 of those, and those are, right there in Santa Cruz. Do you want to just let our listeners know more about those locations, or why then did you choose those 2 locations in Santa Cruz?
Sure. Our first location is on Soquel Avenue. It's pretty tremendous in the sense that it's right off a key exit as you head towards the beaches on the east side of town. And it's our local spot. It's got a huge mural done by a local artist on the front of the building. Same thing on the inside. It just really embodies that spirit of Santa Cruz, which, if you don't know, is very counterculture and old school. And I grew up around a lot of tie dye, right? I mean, that's the kind of town we are. So that's on Soquel Avenue. It's about a 5,000 square foot building, and then our second location moved from a much less desirable location tucked in the industrial neighborhoods that was open since 2017. And it just moved onto Ocean Street, which is like the main tourist drag as you come into Santa Cruz. You come off Highway 17 from the Silicon Valley, and boom, you get introduced to our billboard, number one, which is awesome. Super proud of that. Nice. And then right down the road, we're on the right-hand side. And that was built out from an old Chinese restaurant that was just gross and defunct. And we completely renovated the whole thing from the ground up. And we were able to, really design the space using eco-friendly materials and, renovate it in a way that was most relevant to the modern cannabis, retail scene.
It's just amazing. Such a success story. When I think of all the dispensaries we work with, in the United States and these different locations, population density, disposable income, parking, that kind of choke point, like from my military days, thinking how do I ambush as many customers coming into an area, but do it not as in your face or the MedMen type examples and failures. But, I really, congratulate you guys. You've really embodied that local spirit of the community. You're telling a story. You're still providing amazing products, but using that kind of Santa Cruz brand. And because everyone knows that. And as I see more states legalizing and adult use opportunities, as you're thinking about expansion, what aspects of what you've learned do you think would make you a great operator or applicant or potential partner in some of these new adult use markets in other states or potentially different cities in California?
The number one thing I like to think of a good old school cannabis operator, the number one virtue that is grit. It's just the ability to grind through whatever, whether it's regulations or stigmas or banking solutions or, technological solutions that aren't offered in, cannabis retail, whatever that is, it just always seems a lot easier from the outside looking in. And I've seen time and time again, whether it's, players from the alcohol industry, whether it's software companies, they come into this space and they think they can apply what they've learned from other industries to cannabis. And, to the extent they can, thank you so much, because we need as much of that as possible. But it's always more challenging than they realize. So yeah, I would say resourcefulness and again, coming back to this idea of just, being authentic with your community, with your staff, and having empathy for your community and your staff as well. And I really hope that is the future of cannabis retail across the country.
Yeah, it's needed. There's no one man, one woman army in this, and running a company, especially as an executive, every day it's like a CEO is you're the chief everything officer. Everything's your fault, everything's your benefit. And even if it's something you didn't know about, so really maintaining that good corporate culture, but also that family kind of laid back culture at the same time. It's just incredible the balance you've been able to achieve, getting up to 80 staff, 2 locations. But it sounds like you've got some good support and some good team members. How many of your core team have been with you since the beginning? And then what are some things when you're hiring on new staff or managers or adding locations? What are things that you're looking for to help you grow?
Sure. I'm very proud to say that our leadership team has been there more or less since the beginning, and most of our exempt employees as well. So, you generally get hired at KindPeoples towards, an entry-level position and work your way up. And we do our very best to train you and to keep you and develop trust over time. So really proud of that, and not having a lot of turnover in that regard. And I'm sorry, your second question?
Well, then, as you're growing, what are some of those key things or key people that have either made a huge impact as you've grown, or as you were to look to do more locations? What are those key staff as a manager when you're thinking about hiring that dictates the success of growth?
Yeah. First thing that comes to mind is having that person on your staff that is just relentlessly organized. Because in cannabis, you often come across individuals that are big dreamers and they've just got their foot on the gas, go, go, go. We can make this happen, and that's great. And we all need that. But at the same time, we all need the brakes too. And we all need to be put in check. And we need someone that, knows how to implement realistically and keep things tight and keep things efficient, especially as we move into a time where there is more and more competition. And we all need to become, hyper efficient in our operations for the sake of survival, honestly.
Yeah, now more than ever, it seems like coronavirus caught the world off guard. And then here you're a retail location where you're actually B2C, like dealing with people on a daily basis. And like you said kind of earlier, it's like protecting your staff, taking care of your staff. How in these coronavirus times were your operations changed, upended, where, with lockdowns or like fear of getting sick? Like, what were some of the things that Kind People had to really do right away to adapt and survive?
It's been eye-opening. We're used to dealing with challenges in cannabis, but not like this, right? Going back to that grit, we certainly had to dig deep. But I can honestly say, looking around our community, we have done exceptionally well and are already stronger than prior to when COVID hit. And it boils down to focusing on our fundamentals. Certainly operations had to change, but at the end of the day, we're still doing the same thing for our community and for our customers. So everything got upended, right? I mean, we're no longer able to actually serve cannabis in the store. So we had curbside operations. We really relied heavily on our automated systems. Our online sales went from 4%, which we worked really hard to get to that 4%. They skyrocketed to about 50% at their peak. So, that's hundreds of online orders that are coming in on a daily basis, when previously, we might get a handful here and there. All of the product from our inventory room came onto the sales floor. All of our online orders were fulfilled on the sales floor, and then customers came to the front door for either their online pickup or a consultation via an iPad. And luckily, we have a very robust menu system and catalog that we were able to actually do consultations at the door as well.
That sounds like, you're going from 4% to over 50% of your revenue coming from a new source. That's a super abrupt change. So, it sounds like you've got some grit. I saw some dispensaries that have been in operation for nearly a decade, pretty much forced to almost close in Colorado, or in states like Massachusetts, adult use not being deemed essential. They didn't want people from all these other states coming. I mean, it went to zero. And when you're doing zero revenue and you have staff and jobs and not qualifying for any of like the PPP or the SBA type loans, it definitely, says something about your character and your team's character, how you were able to survive with this. Were there other things that then you had to adapt to? So curbside pickup, just think of all the security you had to do in the past, like with your vaulting and your camera systems now, taking it outside. But were there additional like cleanliness protocol things you had to do? Or, I saw a couple firms using some different softwares for like online ordering to make that easier, or things like Dutchie that were integrating with their products and their menu boards. Were there some things that really kind of set these moments possible to be efficient and survive the times?
Yeah, I think your listeners are well adapted to all the COVID cleaning protocols that take place, right? And we're certainly doing those to the absolute maximum possible. But further than that, we actually had to change the way we do business internally. So, the way we hire, for instance, right? We lost about a third of our staff right out of the gate. Boom, March 17th. Many of our staff just decided they don't want to come, to work and be exposed. And how can you blame them? So recruitment, right? We now have to go through, 300%, 400% of the normal applications that we do. So we had to change the way that we, filtered that recruitment. We had to change the way we onboard, automate a lot of those systems as well, and ensure that our employee training for all those new staff members was efficient. And, on the customer facing side, a lot of it was just mitigating the stress and the anxiety of customers, right? I mean, we've all been exposed to just this anxiety from COVID that is scary, right? And it goes up and it goes down. And so a lot of our frontline team, really just had to work on being compassionate and being empathetic and communicating all of our cleaning procedures and letting them know that, hey, this is a safe space and we offer cannabis medicine and we hope that it helps alleviate, all those anxieties and, whatever you're coming here for, sleep or pain. It's been a tough time and we're happy that we've been able to help.
I bet you never would have thought from like seeing the industry evolve in California and then having a governor come out and say, you're an essential business, from all the things, but, like, I just always think like even the renegades or the illicit market operators are in the States before it happens. It's like, getting medicine to the people. And I really appreciate how you, even though it's like adult use sales are happening, it's like, this is still a medicinal plant, kind of honoring that. And now more than ever, cannabis as a plant, we're recession and depression proof, but the industry isn't, as we've seen many of these businesses not be able to evolve. But by still staying there, keeping those key staff, helping to alleviate suffering is a big way. And I think with, the future of cannabis and the future of cannabis retail, we're going to see some major changes. And you've seen this probably over the years in some examples where it used to be a lot of flower and then pre-rolls, then all these new edible lines. But what are some of the things that you've seen in common trends with the dispensaries changing? And then with coronavirus involved, like where do you see the future of cannabis retail going?
Sure. Well, let's talk about it from the business side and let's talk about it from a consumer facing side. Number one is my true hope is that at the end of the day, the customer and the patient are the ones that benefit the most. So when I think about whether or not Prop 64 has been a success or a failure, look, more people are getting product from a legal marketplace, and that's a good thing. And are there trials and tribulations along the way? Certainly. Am I pissed off about taxation and regulations and the prices that customers are paying at the register? Certainly. Right. But look, we got to start somewhere. And, as we head out into the future here, supply chain's only going to get stronger. More and more competition and economies of scale are going to dictate, higher quality products, more economical products for customers, both being good things. I think we're going to see more jurisdictions, especially with budget concerns in relation to COVID. I think they're going to be opening up. So I have faith that over the coming years, the illicit market will more and more transition into the above board market, and that makes me happy. I think everyone wins under that circumstance. And look, I don't necessarily take issue with the illicit market per se, but why not get all those 20-somethings out there that are finding their dabs from their buddy into a market that's regulated, into a market that's tested, into a market that they can actually afford. So we can talk about all the ways in which that's going to happen at the business level.
Yeah, California is one of those unique states where, like, through voter initiative, like setting your tax rate, that was, I think, a good model to states for what not to do. Because then to change that, it's like we have to go back to the voters. Of course, people, I think, would want less cannabis tax, but that was something that really, when we saw that in California, was like, this is going to be problematic. And now you're seeing, everyone always thought Northern California, like Humboldt, Mendocino, the Emerald Triangle, like that's where like all the big cannabis is coming from, and more so on an illicit side, because most of those counties don't allow like big stacking licenses currently. But then, even south of you, like Monterey, Salinas, Santa Barbara Unincorporated, like massive plantations where they're stacking these licenses. Have you seen a change in where you're getting products now currently? I know that prices have definitely gone up on a wholesale basis in California, and demand in basket size has too. But do you have any sort of like preference when it comes to either buying from like local craft type operators or certain like how do you guys select your products, especially now as you've got more options in California?
Sure. We do have a purchasing matrix that weights and dictates the way we purchase and who we choose to purchase from. I will say that one of the strongest dictators of who we work with is how professional are you? Do you show up when you say you're going to show up? Do you bring the products you say you're going to bring? Do you have your certificate of analysis ready? And believe it or not, even some of these larger companies are not able to pull that off. But on our end of things, we work really hard to provide consistency for our customers. And it's one of the number one complaints we get is, how come I'm not seeing this product that I fell in love with last month on your shelf this month? So that's a really big issue for us. And we don't have a ton of local cultivators here in Santa Cruz, but we do carry as many as we can on our shelves, and we weight them heavily and ensure that we can, keep it local and give back to those cannabis businesses that are also supporting our community in the same ways that we do.
Yeah, for the community, the jobs, the tax revenue, the local base, all of the velocity of capital of like the plumbers, the electricians, the marketers, branders, the security, like there's so much local economy created by this. So being deemed essential, weathering this storm and knowing like our future, it's not just going to return back to normal. It's like this new normal that's being evolved. And like you said it really well, fear and having to actually have people come to a location to actually do a transaction. You can't just Amazon right now. But has Kind Peoples been thinking about potential ways of doing store to your door or partnering with local delivery companies? Is that something that, just like online ordering, you're starting to see pick up as well?
Yeah, we've had an amazing amount of conversations around the idea of subscription services and or delivery, which we actually conducted in the past and shut down due to a lack of demand, believe it or not. But subscription services are a really interesting idea, and one of the issues that we're currently working through right now is a payment solution. Right? We've got an economy of consumers that are all accustomed to Amazon, and I'll tell you what, little old Kind Peoples in little old Santa Cruz, we're not going to be able to pull off Amazon type service, and so we need to show our customers the best possible service that we can provide. But, without having the ability to take credit cards online, it's really challenging to say, hey, sign up for this $99 a month for, this amazing bundle of products and we'll deliver it to your door. But you have to come into the shop to pay. But, there's all these ands, and no one wants any ands anymore, right? No one can hardly wait 5 seconds for a page to load, let alone, be bothered with anything more difficult than what Amazon's able to provide.
Yeah, that consumer, like you said earlier, like the consistent experience, like they're not buying the products, they're buying the experience of it. But that starts with how they research it, how they're marketed to, how they actually are doing those orders. And yeah, what a pain in the ass having to come in and pay every month for something to be delivered. And you hit it on the head, and we've probably both seen countless like payment processing fraudulent type things. It's like it buys the coins here and then it trades the poker chips here and then we pay, all of these things. Yeah, there've been just nightmare programs. So, there's a lot of challenges we face as an industry. Not only is it a startup industry full of startup companies vying for market share, some of these navigating local policies, state policies, internal team dynamics, you throw on a frickin' pandemic, on top of it. Luckily, Santa Cruz is a beautiful place, and Kind Peoples I definitely see as one of those amazing success stories in California where you started to scale, you still maintain those roots of this, and you didn't, just let's be like MedMen, let's be like this, let's be like that. Like you're really a unique story, and I think you and your team have pulled off some amazing things here. So what's limiting you from then? Like, why not take Kind Peoples? It sounds like the world needs more Kind Peoples. What are your kind of current thoughts in California? Are you looking maybe at more cities? We talked maybe about doing delivery. It's really surprising to hear delivery. There wasn't demand and now the world changed. But are you thinking more approaches to brand licensing or going for more locations potentially? Like, what are your thoughts this next year as we're kind of coming out of coronavirus?
Sure. Well, I think we're trying to balance two opposing worlds, so to speak, where on one hand, we want to be able to grow organically. And on the other hand, we don't want to get too far over our skis and overextend ourselves and end up like the MedMens of the world, right? And we're very proud of our cap table being very simple. It's my partner and myself. And we don't have a MedMen to answer to, right? And we don't have, we haven't been issued stock from some publicly traded company that, has a majority of our board. So we're growing at a pace that works well for us, and we're biting off chunks that we can actually chew down. And in the midst of a recession that's looming, and the election, and all these other uncertainties out there, it's definitely a challenge to figure out what our next move is. So right now we're dipping our hands into a number of new initiatives. One of those is organic licenses, and what new jurisdictions are opening up around the state, and how we can get a stronghold there. We're also approaching a number of different companies for some potential strategic partnerships. So that's both on the retail side as well as on the supply chain side. I think the future of KindPeoples lies in our ability to remain authentic in our ethos and our value system, continue doing that. But we also need to be able to compete with pricing and quality that, frankly, is going to get harder and harder to do if we don't have our hand in the supply chain with some amount of vertical integration or, securing contract manufacturing relationships or what have you. So a number of those irons are in the fire currently.
That's good to hear. I see a lot of companies kind of like yours. They started with a location, they get to their second spot, they're growing, they have all those internal dynamics, and then they just don't think bigger. It's like, this is who we are, this is what we do. But just like you said, the supply chain partnership options, getting access to like different products, better products. Has KindPeoples ever like looked to like into white labeling or kind of processing like that, or having your own types of products? Is that something you currently do?
It's not something we currently do. We made a very conscious choice in 2018 at the beginning of legalization to say, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. Let's do retail. And thank goodness that we chose that route. It was one of the smartest decisions we made, because we were able to focus, really stay true to our customer base and capture market share. But as we move forward, I don't think the MSOs were wrong, right? They came in and they said, you're going to need vertical integration. You're going to need a certain amount of scale at the retail level. You're going to need to be able to compete on margins. But they obviously executed poorly, and they're paying the price for that. But what I think is the most amazing thing in the California industry right now is the opportunity for local rootsy cannabis businesses. The next 4 years is just it's just an open it's an open blacktop. It's an open runway for us to really spread out, take advantage of the fact that there's not a lot of capital pouring into the state right now. Take advantage of the fact that a lot of the MSOs are scared shitless of California because of perceptions around taxes and regulation. I'm happy for them to feel that way, right? It allows the rest of us to take advantage of a 40 million customer-based market that's essentially the heart and soul of culture across the globe.
I couldn't agree more. Like, keeping it real, California is one of those markets, even as original Colorado teams. Like, I moved out there in 2017, started to do tons of licenses, living in Topanga, just working all over the state. And I'm like, this is so big. And then like the different regions from Southern California, Central and Northern, I mean, just some of the distribution channels, it's enormous. And when we think about, I work all over the country, all over the world, and I see good brands, I see crap brands, and KindPeoples, it's amazing what you guys have there. And especially in like, you've built it based on the location and that place and that kind of like that feeling. And it's like, I love surfing. I'm a farm kid from Wisconsin, though I'm not very good at it, but I love surfing. But just like that idea of a brand and an experience that's replicable, consistent, that could actually be, I see you guys being a potentially great MSO yourselves, because, as you're looking at, Florida markets opening up for potential adult use, Arizona right next door. That idea of like California, SoCal, Santa Cruz side, the world knows it. And it's not cannabis brands from Oklahoma or certain places that people want to experience, especially when this moves towards national legalization. But the business development side, like you were talking about, I think you're right on the right track here. Potential M&As could be ahead, potential IPOs. Right now, you're right. We see about a tenth, maybe 15% of the capital that was going into the industry last year at this time coming in now. It's amazing to see a great cash flowing company like yours, still getting, being true to yourself and your brand. And that expansion strategy makes a lot of sense to me. There's so many new municipalities opening up. A lot of people, they don't look at it or they get stagnant, but now is this really huge time to act. So, you said you chose retail and you were like, best decision you kind of could have made. You came from cultivation, you saw the industry emerge. What was so unique to you about retail, and specifically there in Santa Cruz, like that drove you for that instead of the other license types?
Sure. The consistency of demand and the upward trajectory that we know is going to continue, ostensibly for decades as the illicit market slowly gets tamped out of the space. We just don't see the volatility in retail that we see in the supply chain. The idea of having a fire decimate your crop. I talked with the North Bay grower just this week up in Sonoma, and it's devastating. I mean, how do you lose an entire crop and come back from that? That's not insured. And so, in retail, we take hits. We're customer facing. It's brutal. Day in and day out, you've got to be there, right? With your customer base. But it's that tangible one-on-one experience, with the customer on a day-to-day basis that is not only just like rewarding on a personal level. It's also just a very consistent business model.
Could not agree more. It's something that, retail will commonly say retail's retail. You might be buying something for $50, selling it for $100. It's like a consistent model. And that's where it sounds like your team brought in some people with that kind of outside industry experience, with the inside industry experience. Those are the only teams I see succeed. When it's like the big capitalist guys that come in, like so much money is going to come from cannabis, they don't understand the industry. That's when they'll get burned. And it's not just a normal retail store. It's like you're selling that experience. And that's something you guys have done so well. So, as we're starting to wrap up here, if there's people that are thinking about getting into cannabis or getting into cannabis in California or starting retail in other states, what are the biggest things that you would think that other retail CEOs should know, before either getting into this or, what's going to make them succeed or not, like similar to your success?
Yeah, I have to think that the reason KindPeoples has been so successful in our market is because we know our community. And that may sound cliche, and to an extent, of course it is, but we were the only collective that opened up that had local operators. Mm-hmm. And at that time, there were plenty of other collectives that had already opened their doors. And you can just feel that when you walk into a retail space. There's the ones that just sort of clash with the environment. And then there's the ones that just feel so natural when you walk in, and you can't buy that, right? That has to be done from the ground up. There has to be employees that come from your community. It has to be involvement with local nonprofits. There has to be a give back component, and it's good for sleeping well at night, and it's good for business. So those would be my recommendations to anyone entering the space in a new market.
That's just awesome. And it's something that most teams miss, especially when they're doing the big new state applications. They try to put a team together or like find a city, but they don't know that city. They don't know the community, its pain points, their community benefits programs. They'll get like half the points on those. So it sounds like, with what you guys have done, it's just phenomenal to see the company grow. And I can't wait until, maybe there's 10 KindPeoples in California, because the world needs more KindPeoples out there. A lot of assholes, a lot of fear. Coronavirus, we even from like the EY side and like Merrill side reports, like we don't see the world really getting anywhere towards normal-ish until the beginning of 2022, mid 2022. Do you think there's any other challenges that are going to be facing you, as you continue to go through coronavirus, or any other maybe changes you think might be coming?
Yeah, one of the items that comes up most often in our risk assessment is what happens when and if you're able to efficiently ship cannabis across the state. And there's this delivery lawsuit that's happening right now in the state of California, which is quite controversial. And at the end of the day, I want the customer to win. I want there to be more cannabis spread across the state of California. But at the same time, I think we need to strike a balance and realize that there are a lot of small cannabis businesses are just starting to tap their roots. And, if an Amazon-like or Ease-like company is able to, quickly and efficiently ship, at scale across the state of California, their buying power and their ability to partner and their ability to cash flow could really decimate all of these, mom and pop cannabis businesses that have really paved the way. And that would be a sad day.
Yeah, we see that happening in, especially in states where there's limited production, the New Jerseys, the Pennsylvanias, Illinois. You've got this massive demand and only so few, and then all these lawsuits for the new licenses not happening. And those still big ones, they have their market share. California's definitely seen its fair share of that. But as more municipalities are coming online, I think, for operators like yourselves or to look at like a good operation like yours, perfect partnership type opportunity. I put my investor hat on and I think, this is solid. You've scaled, you've grown organically, 80 plus staff doing revenues, having a great story. There's something unique about KindPeoples that I just don't see in many dispensaries. It's just incredible to think that story, I'd love to see it spread across the country because there's so few dispensaries that have a soul. And, you're really an authentic, real cannabis company that came from the roots of California. You went through the hoops of compliance, having to deal with like CPAs and lawyers and the BCC and all of the different local hearings and then your live scans all the time. It's really incredible, your success. So like for any of our listeners or viewers, check out KindPeoples when you're in Santa Cruz. If you're interested in potential partnership opportunities, how would they get in touch with you and KindPeoples?
Sure. Yeah. You can check us out on our website, kindpeoples.com. We've got a tremendous website that has tons of information about who we are and how to contact us. You can always reach out to me directly. My email address is Khalil@kindpeoples.com. First name Khalil. And love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, Khalil, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you today. You're super insightful. One of those things that I would say like true success story in the cannabis industry where there's just so many fraudsters, people just trying to come in and make a quick buck, never knew where the industry came from, don't really honor the plant, the medicine, the community, the people, the vibe, and, being able to walk the line between corporate and tie-dye. It's like, this industry, it's like you walk between worlds and you're doing a great job of it. So, major appreciation for you joining Cannabis Unfiltered today, sharing with our readers, with our listeners, and just kind of inspiring me to be a little bit more of a kind people myself, especially during coronavirus time. It's there's still so much beauty in the world, and you're helping to share that beauty, and just really appreciate all you do.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I think we might have to use that tagline, KindPeoples walking the line between tie-dye and corporate.
It's happened to us all.
I'm not sure how well it would resonate, but you got me sold.
Indeed. Well, you're obviously just doing a great job and a true model for what people need to look for, especially as we look at an industry that's not very diverse or didn't have any local flavor. And it's like you're really just a positive role model and example for like other people in the industry to follow. So, I just invite anyone who's got potential opportunities in California where KindPeoples might be a synergy, or in these other states as people are applying for licenses. 95% of the time when we win licenses in other states, it's with a great core team in that new state that has some partners or equity owners from out of state, have licenses, have gone through compliance, security, record keeping. They're trustworthy by another state government. So if there's people that are interested in that, definitely reach out for KindPeoples for that sort of assistance, because I think this is the sort of brand that I would love to see all over the world.
Hey, thanks, Nick. I appreciate you having us on, and thanks for the kind words.
Absolutely. Well, Nic Easley here with CEO Khalil of KindPeoples, signing off a great Cannabis Unfiltered. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.